Well, good evening, everyone in West Virginia, or West Almost Heaven, Virginia, Best Virginia, however you want to say it. It's all good because it's West Virginia, right, ladies?
That's right.
Right.
I need to hear some more energy there, right?
That's right.
What do you prefer? Who prefers what? Who prefers Almost Heaven? Who prefers By God?
I'm by God, I think.
Who prefers Best Virginia?
Best.
I prefer them all. Anyway, all right. Welcome, everyone, to those of you that are joining us on the live stream. It's so good to have you. This is Monday with Mountain Mamas, and we have some amazing Mountain Mamas, and these women are candidates running for office in West Virginia for the House of Delegates. So we've brought them on tonight. We're going to talk about issues. We're going to talk about their campaigns, how things are going, issues of interest. I'm going to apologize right up front because I sent everybody the wrong link, and there's Delegate Barbara Fleischhauer. I sent everybody the wrong link and created all this mass confusion. So I must accept that. I sent the wrong link out, but we got it together because we're women and we fix things, right, ladies?
That's right.
That's right. So, Barbara, sorry about that. My bad.
Well, are you sure? Did I mess everybody else up with the link?
No, nope. It was my fault. I take responsibility. I've been out of cell service all day today because I went and finally got onto the property I bought.
Cool.
And I've been out of cell service all day. So anyway.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it happens. Hey, this happens, ladies. You know, that's the great thing. We have to, about women who are currently serving in the House and women who are running for the House. We know how to pivot. We know how to evolve. We know how to solve problems. And so, you know what? Things happen, but we pivot.
And as Danielle says, we are fierce and we are flexible. And we're calm under pressure. But Jeanette is not here because of the snafu. She is not here because campaigning can be hazardous to your health. Her 83-year-old mother, who walks regularly, apparently tripped on a curb, and we learned not too long ago that they were at the ER, and she apparently is on her way home. But Mountain Mama Jeanette Rousey's mama is hurt, so we send her some happy healing energy and let everyone know in the Cabell County area that if you have some time to hit the pavement for Jeanette Rousey, she is one volunteer down, and watch your step. So also, I wanted to, when I got dressed today, I ended up in a lot of orange, including my vote t-shirt. And you can guess what orange thing this vote t-shirt is about. But it reminded me of a knock-knock joke that I told a whole lot when I was a kid. And so it goes, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Orange.
Orange shoe.
Aren't you glad you got 21 Mountain Mamas to vote for?
I love it.
So there's one thing I wanted to say that is not about Mountain Mamas, but is a follow-up to the discussion we had last week about the very historic, important, problematic death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the politics that started immediately around that. But Mountain Mamas PAC, as you might guess, is going to stick with our mission of getting women, forward-thinking women, elected to the West Virginia legislature. But individually, there are a lot of us that are paying attention to the politics of the Supreme Court. And so we just wanted to let Mountain Mamas fans know that there are many, many national groups that are addressing that issue. But if you want to get involved in West Virginia or on the local level, we know that Citizens Action Group, the West Virginia chapters of the National Organization for Women, the Poor People's Campaign, there are a lot of groups that are addressing what seems to be a kind of stimulus over SCOTUS appointment message. And so we won't be talking about that on Mountain Mamas or putting information about that on our page. We're sticking with filling those seats in the West Virginia legislature with Mountain Mamas, but just want you to know that you can find the information you need, because it is an important historic time in terms of who is going to be sitting on the court and when that appointment will happen.
Absolutely.
So,
I have to give a shout out to my daughter, who's been making notorious RBG masks, and they are so freaking cool. It's awesome. So thank you, my sweet daughter. So, but yeah, what a historic occasion this has been. Delegate Flashhour, thank you so much for joining us. Anna, Susan, Debbie. Let's just start with introductions first. Delegate Flashhour, let's go to you, and then we're going to go to Anna, Susan, Debbie, and DL. All right.
Okay. You can hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Barbara Evans Fleischauer, and I have been a longtime delegate. In fact, I'm the longest serving female delegate in the legislature. I've been in 24 years. And I'm from Montague County, where we are lucky to have 5 delegates, I think. And I am an attorney like DL, and I am a fighter for women's rights. That's one of the main reasons I ran for office. And I think that's a very honorable calling and, you know, we have opportunities where we can do things to improve the status of women, because we can only go up. We have the lowest number of women in the legislature, but we also have the lowest, we are right up there in terms of being the worst when it comes to the pay gap, when it comes to women's participation in the workforce, and also women's education. So there's really a lot to do. So that's why I'm excited to have more candidates from all different parts of the state. We really are geographically kind of diverse this evening. I worked a lot with Susan when she worked as an attorney for DHHR. She appeared in our Judiciary Committee all the time, and I really, really respect Susan. And I'm so glad that she's running, and I'm really looking forward to, I'm hoping she can be in there, because I know she'll contribute. And so I will pass the baton to somebody else. I want to hear more about all of you.
Anna, take it away.
I'm Anna Lewis. I'm in District 16, which is a part of Cabell, part of Lincoln. We currently have 3 delegates. They're all men, one of whom I think the world of, Sean Hornbuckle. But I'm running basically for children. I have children. I volunteered with children, worked with children in education. And I feel like there's more that we could be doing in the legislature to prepare them for their future, to prepare a future for them here. And so that's kind of my mission, is to look at everything as how they'll affect children and how it'll help them grow. And that covers things like minimum wage and financial issues for parents, health issues, definitely education issues, how education is the #1 way to lift our children out of poverty, especially considering our poverty rate in the state and within Cabell County, especially, and Lincoln County. So that's what motivates me, and that's why I am running. I'm also kind of piggybacking on what Barbara said, is we've had some women in and out of our district. It's usually on the Republican side, and they usually last for a few years and they move on to another office or what have you. And I feel like we should at least have, I'd love it if there were all 3 women, but we should at least have 1. And I think I'd be a pretty good one. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm really excited to be a part of the Mountain Mamas, and to be running with such amazing women. And it's been a real honor, no matter how it turns out. I hope that we all win, but however it turns out, this has been a really cool experience.
We are so excited, Anna, and love to hear what you're running about and what you're running for. So, Susan, tell us what district you're running in and all about you.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Susan Perry, and I live in Logan, West Virginia. I'm a lifelong resident here. My district includes most of Logan County, part of Boone County, and a little tiny bit of Wyoming County. So if you're from one of those counties, hey, glad to see you. I'm running because I believe that we need stronger labor activists in our legislature. I'm supported by the UMWA, the school service personnel, the AFT, the WVEA, AFL-CIO, the Painters Union, and many other unions. And so I want to make sure that we get rid of that right to work legislation, because right to work is really doesn't mean right to work. It means right to work for less. And I also want to see the prevailing wage legislation reintroduced. And those are big issues for me, and they're big issues for people in this area. And so that's why I want to be in the legislature, is to help working families, working people get their fair share.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Susan. Next up, Debbie Carroll.
Hi, my name is Debbie Carroll, and I am in the northeastern part of Berkeley County, the other side of the world here. The reason I am running is because I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I see the need that in our schools. We need to take care of our teachers. In this area, teachers can drive 20 minutes further in any direction for $20,000 more per year. We need to change this. I mean, we can't keep losing our teachers. My daughter's in 6th grade, and she has had 3 first-year teachers in those 6 years. So that tells me that our teachers are not staying. I mean, yes, we have to be grateful and thankful for the ones that are, but we need to make sure we can keep them all here. And there's just so many things. I am new to politics. I was not never thought I'd be a politician. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have said you were crazy. But when I was approached and asked if I would run, I started looking into things, and I see that there are a lot of things that we need to change and we need to improve upon, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here for the people.
And isn't that so refreshing to hear? And of course, our fearless leader, DL, is in the house with us tonight.
Because I am for the people, but I am here for the mountain mamas. For all kinds of reasons, I will never be a candidate, but I have always thought it was important to run for office. And as Barbara knows, we were up there a few years ago when I realized that there were only 2 what I call forward-thinking women in the legislature, and so we're up to 8, and we have 21 running. They all speak for themselves, but what makes you a mountain mama is partly that you want to be a mountain mama. It means you want to get to know the other women running, you want to support them, you want to help them, and that we all work together, knowing that the more forward-thinking women there are in the legislature, the better legislature we have. So that is why I'm here, and I also want to speak specifically to a mountain mama, Tina Russell, who is running for Mercer County, and I want to talk about the single shot vote. And so I can do that now or whenever Sarah calls on me to talk about single shot voting. And I also want to remind people about their absentee ballots, but I first have to remind myself about the various deadlines of when to request and when to you have to get it in by election day, either postmark. But do you have that graphic, or do you want to get that up later and talk about the deadlines later, Sarah?
Yeah, we can do that in a little bit. I want to make sure we get to some questions. So Amanda Vizanot Amanda, if I got your last name wrong, I am so sorry. I'm just getting a lot of things wrong today. So I need cannabis stances from some of the Mountain Mamas. I know I need them from Susan and Anna for sure. And Debbie's. Who wants to go with that first?
And another hat that I wear is a cannabis hat, and I work with Amanda on the legislative page for prize. So Amanda, thanks for getting on, because that's one of the reasons that we have Mountain Mamas Monday, to ask Mamas questions. And the question is about your stance on medical and general legalization of cannabis, I guess.
Anna, you want to take
I'll go ahead and first. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Amanda, for the question. My stance is that I am for the decriminalization of marijuana. So that covers or encompasses medical marijuana, that covers recreational marijuana and cannabis usage, if that's what you want to call it, recreational. But I'm definitely for decriminalization. I think that our state, in particular, especially climate-wise, would do very well with the growth and the sale. I know from personal experience that it can help medicinally through trauma, through helping yourself heal. You can work with your doctors on the treatment issues and the things that encompass that you can also encompass with it, like therapy and those kinds of things. But overall, I think that if you want to talk not just on what I consider the ridiculousness of the criminalization of cannabis, it's that it's costing us a lot of money. It's costing us a lot of money here in West Virginia. It's costing us family members who have been arrested for possession, those kinds of things. The cost of keeping up the arrests, or maybe the housing in our already overcrowded prison systems. Those are just some aspects that I like to remind people of if they want to bring up things as far as the legalization and the stigma that comes with cannabis usage. So I think, especially considering our surrounding states are all becoming, decriminalized in some aspect or another, we'll be fighting a war against ourselves. So I think that at this point, it's 2020. We have to realize the fact that, times have changed. And it's not just about taking advantage of a new industry and the financial aspects and the help we can have, the earmarking of the revenue that could go to so many things like my big deal, public education. It's just a waste of our resources not to. At this point, it's costing us money, and to me, that's a huge issue, and it's one that this is the year. 2021 should be our year to put an end to that with a blanketed decriminalization. That's my opinion.
And before we go to Susan and Debbie, I want to just add that I suffered from seizures for a while, and I started taking CBD oil, and I haven't had a seizure since.
Well, if not to jump back in, but from my own personal experience, and I people that are close to me know about it. I'm not embarrassed. I just really haven't had much of a chance to talk about it. But I went through major trauma. I was abused from the ages of 6 to 19. And a lot of the issues that come from lifelong abuse, the healing of it goes into adulthood, especially if you've never been introduced to what a normal life is like. It can be debilitating. And part of the thing that cannabis usage helped me do was to sleep better. It helped me regulate my eating through multiple eating disorders and issues. It helped me to feel less stressed during issues that were happening in life, that most people can regulate their stress levels and how they respond and how they interact. It helped me keep my relationships at some points when otherwise my fight or flight would ruin those things. I have nothing but good things to say about cannabis usage, especially when you pair that with the help of a doctor. I don't recommend anybody go head first into anything, especially when you're trying to heal yourself. But I'm with you, Sarah. Medicinally, especially, we have to stop ignoring all the benefits of it.
Right. Susan, I'll go to you next.
I think we should move to complete the work. I know our legislature has already done a lot of work toward medical cannabis use, but for whatever reason, it hasn't been finished. I know there's a banking issue that's involved in it. And so I think we need to, when we get elected, start working on completing that process so that we can move that step and then go the next step into decriminalization.
Okay. And you raise a really good point there, Susan, and because most legislation is a step-by-step process. It's rare that you have one bill that goes through and it encompasses everything. Typically, it's a step-by-step process. So, Debbie, let's hear your thoughts.
I agree with both of them on everything that they've said. It should be legalized. The cost that we are going through for police officers to be dealing with each of these cases. And if you look at the medicinal values, that's awesome. We have cancer patients, everybody, this could help so many people. And it could possibly even help alleviate some of the opioid problems that we have. If there's a legal and safer alternative, it could help us, So I'm all for it.
Absolutely. And here's what I think 2/3, I think if I'm wrong, tell me, but 2/3 of the population in the United States are on the Eastern Coast, correct? I believe. Sounds if we as a state were to begin this process and providing this resource, we're pretty close to a lot of people here in the US. So I'm not really sure how this got really criminalized, but let's hope that with all of you elected, we can start making some change towards that. So let's, Barbara, I'm going to ask, do you have any questions as a sitting delegate for any of the candidates that you would like to ask?
Well, let me jump in real quick and talk a little bit about the medical marijuana. I'm just so excited to have coming in because it was blocked. We passed it in 2017. Okay, this is 2020. It still got blocked. The fix got blocked. And, in Morgantown, we were right on the border of Pennsylvania. The year after we did, they had stores for like 2 years now. It did not have to be this way. And there were some conservative, I don't think there were any Democrats that blocked it, but there were conservative Republicans that up blocks, and it's just ridiculous because, there are people, and there are some really strong Republicans that supported it too. I have to say that people who had family members with cancer, but it's time. We need your help. So I did have a question for Anna. I thought Debbie's example about her daughter having first-year teachers, and she's what, 6th grade? Is that what you said?
That's correct.
That really tells you something. Do you have examples that, like, why you want to be an advocate for children and what you want to improve about education? Can you make it more concrete for us?
I have children. I've always wanted to be a mother, and I am one. I have 3 children. Now I have a stepson who is 17. I have a 13-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter. 2 of them, one of them lives in Proctorville, Ohio, but the other ones are here with me in the school system here. But on top of that, I've had experience working as a preschool educator for a number of years. I've volunteered as much as I can with things like 4-H extension and I'm the popcorn lady at our local elementary school, and I do food pantry at our middle school. And so I have some experience as far as that's concerned. But to be honest, I touched on a little bit the last question, but I have experience in child abuse and the things that it's not just the abuse, but it's the generational dysfunction of it. And I'm in a neighborhood where, sadly, I have gone outside multiple times, and it still exists. I go outside and I can witness child abuse around me. It's an ongoing battle. I guess one of the things, if I don't want to go on too long, but one of the things that happened last year, I had started doing some minor lobbying on my own with a friend of mine, Jenny Anderson. I don't know if many of you know her. She's a huge advocate for children. Yes, Sarah knows what I'm talking about. She's a very good friend of mine. And we would go during the teacher strikes in support of public education. We would share statistics as far as the importance of public education, the inequality that can happen when public education is deterred. Some of the things that I have witnessed myself here in schools, just in some schools in Cabell County. When that started, around the same time, there was an issue going on in my neighborhood where the child abuse was blatant and obvious, and it's a sad thing. And I'm not trying to bag on anybody or any careers. Every single social service in West Virginia is understaffed and underpaid. But one of the issues that was happening is that myself, the neighbors, we were calling, and naively, I was under the impression, having never dealt with it before, that you call CPS or you call the police, and they will, in turn, meet the family with services, with help, with things like family therapies or other aspects that you read about in the newspaper or ideas that people have. And I had just assumed that's what was going to happen. Sadly, that was not the case, and it still continues to not be the case. At one point, I can remember calling the police because I heard screaming, and the police showed up to the home and knocked on the door, and because nobody answered the door, they just left.
So what would you do if you got about child abuse? What do you think needs to be changed?
Well, one of the things that I think needs to be changed immediately is the response time that happens when somebody calls or when somebody has a particular concern. I know that there is what I consider to be, and I'm not in the industry, so it's very easy for me to say as an outsider. But I feel like the lag time it's an immediate need. We need a faster response time. We need massive amounts of funding. It's just
don't you think that's one of the big things is
yes.
The only way you would get that you could reduce the lead time is ensure that the child protective service workers are getting paid a decent wage, and also that the whole system is funded to say that children are important, like top important. They're maybe more important than the coal industry.
Exactly.
Maybe, and I know that's heresy, but Susan knows a lot about the whole system.
Yes,
Since she worked for DHHR, what do you think about the solutions to child abuse, Susan? Where do you think we can push the buttons that would make things better for those children in those situations and also the family so they actually get the service? How do we do that?
One of the things that I've been concerned about lately is how much we have placed on our education system. We're asking our teachers to be social workers and counselors and everything like that. And so I think some of the CPS system could be alleviated if we put more counselors and social workers into the school system and allow them to do some of that CPS work uh, that's needed for families who have children that are school age, and then allow DHHR to concentrate on the children that are not in school yet, or the after hours situations where you get called out. I don't know if you remember this, Barbara, but I started out my career as a social worker, and my very first job out of college was being what was called the foster care home finder. I went out and interviewed people and, checked their references and things like that, and trained them to be foster parents. And then I would go out on the calls with the CPS workers, and after the CPS worker and the police determined that abuse was occurring and that we needed to remove the children from the home on an emergency basis, I would take the children with me and place them in the foster home that I had approved. So I have a lot of feelings about this, and it's a really, really important issue. But I think by putting some social workers and more counselors directly into the school system, they could work with school age children and their families.
That's an interesting. We did put more money for counselors and nurses, and maybe the thing to do, Anna, is look at that legislation and think about adding more money, like putting in a bill that would increase that line item by a certain amount.
Yes.
And then maybe doing a little bit about what Susan's saying. Debbie, I see you're everybody that's in favor of child abuse. Have you seen things, or do you have any ideas about solutions that you've encountered, for problems you've encountered where you live?
I agree with adding more counselors. I think that's a great idea. We need to just, as community, we need to start watching and paying more attention to what's going on in our community, and acting upon things when we see something that we know is wrong.
See something, say something.
Right.
I have been sort of identified, actually. There was a senator, Sandra Lucht, from your area, from the Eastern Panhandle, a long time ago, before I was in office. And I was very interested in equal pay. And she said, well, you could solve a lot of the problem with equal pay if you just raised the salary of social workers, if you lifted them. And I often think about what it would be like to go home to your family after you found a child with a cigarette burn. Would you be thinking, as you sauteed your dinner and boiled the macaroni, was that on purpose or was it an accident? And just what a stressful job that would be. I mean, it is stressful working in the coal mines because it's dangerous. It's a different, but I would think, and it's stressful being a police officer because you have to be alert all the time. And then you have to turn into a different person when you go home to your family. But it's the same thing for social workers. And we just don't recognize that. We almost don't recognize it's a profession. DHHR has been trying to take the requirement of social work out of the job of child protective service workers. We can just train them to fill out, the paperwork, and it's a big battle. They have succeeded in doing that. We need to reinstate that, I think. But it'll be really nice to have. These are hard problems, but it's a 60-day session, so you really need to think, what button can I push to solve that problem? And you got to study and figure out. But it's really good to have somebody like Susan, who worked. How many years did you work for DHHR, Susan?
I worked for 3.5 years as a social worker. Then I went to law school. After law school, I came back and did some other work, and then went back to work for DHHR and worked for them for another 12, 14 years.
And you were assistant, well, you kind of moved on up. But you worked with, I'm trying to remember the family law agency that you worked with. I mean, what was your title when you were
the
child? What was it called?
I was the commissioner of the Bureau for Child Support Enforcement for 8 years, and the 2 years before that, I was their assistant general counsel part of the time and the acting general counsel for another part of the time. Then after I left the Bureau for Child Support Enforcement, I was the deputy secretary for the whole Department of Health and Human Resources.
Well, a lot of times those problems come out when there's divorce. You know, that the mom will say, I've had enough and I need to protect my children, even though I don't know how we're going to survive. So those kinds of things, I know that you do know that stuff, and you have all kinds of skills that would be great to bring with you.
Yeah, and I think Delegate Fleischhauer, you're spot on that getting ahead of this and knowing all the facts, preparing and strategizing for a 60-day session is critically important. Having amendments ready, having, again, strategies in place. And I want to go to something that, Susan, you said, which I think is fascinating. We have the Bureau for Child Support Enforcement, which is, you know, essentially getting parents to pay their fair share of child support. But as a state, my personal opinion is we are failing to support our children. So it's such a juxtaposition of what we're, you know, making parents do, which they have that obligation and they should be doing it. But as a state, we're failing to support these children. And we also have to be very cognizant of these for-profit or even nonprofit organizations caring for these children. And I'm going to just bring out a personal comment, if I could. I had a relative in one of these homes in a different state. We were very disturbed by a phone call that we received, so much so I felt the need to call law enforcement. We immediately had my relative removed from that residence, from that placement. Last week, 2 of the boys in that facility killed another one. No oversight. Nobody has any answers. And it just seems to me like we're just, and that's happening in West Virginia, that's happening in many states. So I don't know. I know this is a huge issue to tackle, but this has become so much more personal for me, not just because I care about kids, but because I think, what if that had been my kid? What if that had been my relative? So we have so much work to do. And Delegate Fleischhauer, I think you're spot on. Coal has been an important thing in our economy, but when did children become less important?
Well, they're not in the Constitution. And the welfare of the citizens.
We need a children's bill of rights.
I couldn't hear you.
I'd love to have a children's bill of rights where we can agree, we can come to a legal agreement of what it is to nurture a child, what it is that children need, the safety precautions, the educational and the nutritional and all those things. If we could come together with a bill of rights for children, and once that's agreed upon, you know, it doesn't have to be too formal, but, you know, and then have the rest of those things fall beneath it. I just feel like that would make such a difference, such a change. We can't even agree as parents what abuse is sometimes, what neglect is sometimes. You know, it depends on the family, depends on your history, what you grew up with, what you think is acceptable sometimes. And while some of that's understandable, you know, we have got to come together and make an agreement about what is acceptable and what is not. And then in that way, we as a state can protect our children and help raise our children.
I see Susan, did you raise your hand there?
I think she was swatting a fly.
Oh,
No, I was raising my hand.
okay.
I just wanted to say that West Virginia is actually a national leader in child support enforcement. We have some of the best and strongest legislation in West Virginia and implementation in the country for child support, and our statistics show that consistently. But it's because we receive a lot of federal money to fund the program. And that is why, and there are also national standards that we have to adhere to in order to get the federal money. And so some of these other aspects don't get federal money. And so therefore they're neglected in West Virginia and in other states. For example, the Child Support Agency enforces the payment of child support. We don't enforce parents getting their parenting time. Why? Because there's no federal money for that.
Let me ask you, Barbara, since not Barbara, Susan, since you were there. Do you feel that DHHR is too top heavy and not enough people on the ground doing the hard work?
Oops, sorry. That's not the real issue, because there have been some initiatives through the years to try to divide DHHR up to make it a little more manageable. And that just adds more people at the top. And what the real issue is, I think, is paying people appropriately for the work that they're doing. Because, years ago when I first got out of school, I was a protective service worker. And I have to tell you, I came from, a nice middle class family. And all of a sudden I was thrown into things that I had never imagined, places that I had never been, situations that were far beyond whatever we had studied in our class. And I had a degree in counseling. And it's a real learning curve, and some of it can be very, very scary. It's remarkable that people continue to do this day after day, year after year, because they are putting their lives on the line every time they go out on a CPS call. Because you would go out, and some of them obviously were misunderstandings. Some of them were people who had grudges against other people. But then there were the real serious ones. And you never knew when you knocked on that door whether there was a gun on the other side.
Yeah. By the way, just a shout out here to Charleston's mayor, the Honorable Amy Goodwin. Good to have you here. Thank you for joining us. So West Virginia did take a step in many ways with the Handle with Care Act. Delegate Fleischauer, I believe you were there when that bill was passed. And for those of you who are unaware, basically, if a child is involved in a police incident, the school is contacted by the police, and all they say is the child's name and Handle with Care. They don't go into specifics. It's just a way to let school officials know that something bad something traumatic has happened. And so, and that's gotten a lot of traction. Lots of other states are very interested in implementing that there, and some have already done that. The other thing, though, was it created the Children's Justice Center, correct? Or do I have that wrong?
I'm not sure. I don't think it was legislation, actually. I think it was a policy of the police, and it started in Charleston and it spread around the rest of the state. And you're definitely right about it being a wonderful program, because a lot of bad stuff, it happens at night, and it is so disruptive for children. And then the teachers can maybe help them ease through this trauma. And I don't know about the Children's Justice Center. I mean, there are a couple of there's a place, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up, and I may have that completely wrong. But
there's a child law, which is an agency, or it's a law firm, and you know what I'm talking about, Susan, that represents
I do.
clients. It's a former judge from Mercer County, actually, who started this law firm to represent children's issues. And I'm blanking on her name right now. Do you remember her name? Because Susan and I went to law school together. Her was in my class, and she was a year ahead of us. Is that right, Susan? You were
I'm the senior partner.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so the point though is we have made some progress in terms of, okay, so Mayor Goodwin, thank you so much for jumping in here with us. Started in Charleston with CBD and United States Attorney's Office, and great teachers. Oh, we cannot emphasize. And Mayor Goodwin, you're so right. Social workers are first responders. Mm-hmm. And sometimes maybe the most important first responders that children can have. And
we need to pay them more.
We do. We need to pay them more. We need to, there needs to, well, I will say, when I was in the nonprofit sector, anytime we had a job opening, they all came from social work at DHHR because they didn't pay enough. Mm-hmm. It was incredibly difficult. I almost think sometimes we need more so that they're not working 60 to 70 to 80 hours a week and being called out, 2 nights a week. Almost like shifts like nurses work 3 days a week so that it's not so traumatic. These social workers see very traumatic situations.
Mm-hmm. I think, Anna, in a way, that would be something to focus on, to talk about the issues that you're concerned about, but have a specific policy issue, that it is time that we paid social workers something that's closer to the value of what they perform for us. But that's my soapbox. I would love to work on that with you. I bet Susan would too, since she was one.
I see a beautiful plan coming together here. Beautiful plan. This is what this group is all about, folks, is women working together, empowering each other, supporting one another, and coming together for solutions. And I would be remiss, since we are it's about 7:48. This has been a phenomenal conversation. I'm going to bring our fearless leader, DL, back in because we want to talk about a few other things too. DL, you are back.
Hi, I really enjoyed the conversation about social worker. I used to call myself a social change worker, but that I have just always admired not only social workers, but the organization that they have here in West Virginia. And I think it was a busy Monday for a lot. So if you come across this video and know a social worker, please message that social worker and get them on board with Mountain Mamas, because Mountain Mamas know that not only is there a lot of work to do, but there's a lot of social work to do. But on the absentee ballot issue, I've been looking at mine, and this is the actual ballot that comes in a very big manila envelope that looks very official looking. And inside that envelope, there are complete instructions, and the smaller absent voters ballot that makes it a secret ballot. So you make sure after you vote, you put it in this small ballot. And last week when Barbara was saying, and make sure you sign it, I had just gotten mine that day, and I was looking like, well, I don't see a place to sign it, because that was looking at the front, and at least in Kanawha County, and I think everywhere, it is postage prepaid, and it has your name and your address and your number. But when you go on the back, there's all kinds of things to sign, and in a big square box, it says that you have to sign, or if you just make a mark, your witness needs to sign. But you also have to print your full name and your residence address again on the back, even though it's on the front. And I guess if you or if anyone hand delivers your ballot, you have to sign that says that you affirm that you have not examined or altered the enclosed ballot, because your ballot inside the little envelope makes it a secret ballot. And in terms of the dates, again, it must be postmarked by Election Day or hand-delivered by November 2nd. But if you're going to hand deliver it early. The important date is that it must be requested by Wednesday, October 28th. So if you know someone who wants to vote absentee, then please help them. Go online to, I think it's Go Vote West Virginia at the Secretary of State's website, or go to your county clerk and request that ballot. And the early voting is another option. Again, that's from October 21st to October 31st, trick or treat. And I tell you, this election, if ever there was a trick or treat election, this is one of them. And real quickly, almost 95,000 absentee ballots have been requested, with 22,000 of them already returned. Again, us old people are winning by a long shot, and more women have voted absentee than men. But there's some ways, and this is advice for Mountain Mamas, that you can follow up on absentee ballots that have been requested and not returned. So that's a way to help all your voters to make sure they have a voting plan, and perhaps they just have that absentee ballot set aside in case they aren't going to early vote or vote on November 3rd. But if they do that, they need to take that absentee ballot with them, or they have a chance of having to vote provisionally. Also wanted to remind people to remind 17-year-olds that they can register to vote if they are going to be 18 by November 3rd. And that's the other really hard deadline that is a very important deadline that is coming up. And that is that the deadline to register to vote in the general election is October 13th. So there are ways via social media and a lot of get out the vote efforts out there that are trying to get that registration up and people out voting. So if you haven't registered by the 13th, you cannot vote in this very important election. And the next thing I wanted to talk about, I don't know, do we have time for the video of Tina?
We do.
Okay.
You want me to show it first and then you talk about it?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is Tina Russell from it might be a little broader than Mercer County like Susan's, but it's basically Mercer County District. And this is kind of a handmade video.
All right, let's play it and see what she's got to say.
Oops, no volume. Well, that's okay. They got to see her, and believe me, Tina has plenty to say. And
so, well, before I forget now, so you guys couldn't hear it?
No. So single shot is kind of a controversial concept, and what that means is that single shot means you only give one vote, even if there are 3 or 4 running and you have 3 or 4 votes. And Barbara knows this very well because she is from a 5-delegate district, and they worked very hard to get no one to vote less than the 5 votes they have and have them all be their Democratic slate. And they were very successful in that, and all 5 Democrats came to Mon County. So it is a matter of strategy, and certainly candidates that are hesitant to say, just vote for me. But I'm partly reminding people that you don't have to spend all your votes, but I am encouraging people in Mercer County, or if you know people in Mercer County who can vote for Tina Russell. Mercer County has not sent a Democrat to the legislature in a very long time, and she is a person of color, she is a veteran, she is a mountain mama, she is a good person, she is a good candidate, and she is the only Democrat on the ballot. So it is easy to just give one vote and just don't vote those other 2 votes in Mercer County, and let's send Tina Russell to the West Virginia legislature by doing what's called a single shot vote for Tina Russell. So that is my soapbox for this round, and Mountain Mamas is getting a commercial together that we'd appreciate your helping us share that out once we get it done. And I'm ending on kind of a sad note in that I saw something on Facebook last night, and it was the cover of the Goodnight Moon book, the ever popular children's story. And it said, "Good night, Moon. Good night, Zoom." We know that. and good night, thoughts of impending doom. And those are things that happened today. I mean, it is a Corona coaster. That was Susan's word earlier for how we're doing at these times. And people are easily triggered. People get into arguments over small things. People are scared. People are worried. Some people are in real crises. But this election and working on this election can really help uplift how you are feeling right now. It can give you hope. It can give you energy. It can keep you connected with people who are doing something important and trying to make things better. So please, when you say goodnight, don't think about that impending doom. Think about what you're going to do when you get up tomorrow to help elect Mountain Mamas and the other good people on the ballot that will help move West Virginia forward. Thanks for being here.
I want to just add, Tina Russell is also a veteran. You may have said that, DL. I don't know. A veteran. And she will do so much to restore credibility to the Mercer County seat after that last individual who was there. And so she's just genuine. She's so authentic and genuine. What you see is what you get. And she's the complete package. She's just everything. So, and check her out.
Could we take a few more minutes and hear from Debbie? I probably talked too much, and I would really like to hear, Debbie, you're Berkeley County, right? And is that 3 single-member districts?
There's several districts, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So who is in it? There are a whole lot of Republicans that are not running. Who are you running against?
I am running against Charles Horst. In my district, there has never been a woman nor a Democrat win.
Wow.
So
you are brave.
But he's new too, right?
He is new, yes.
Who had the seat before?
Bippy.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then before that, it was Overington was here forever.
Oh, you may have the hardest district in the state.
I think so. But I'm really feeling very hopeful. I have been president of the Marlow Roritan here for 3 years now. So, and I help at lots of school events. I've been on the PTOs. I do all kinds of things for the community. So I'm well known, and I'm well known and liked by lots of people in the community, Republicans and Democrats. So I'm not, I'm not going against everybody like I'm an outsider.
Right.
So I'm hoping that that's going to help, get past the whole what side are you on thing, because they know me. Yeah.
So what if you had one thing you wanted to work on? You talked about teachers. Would that be your number one thing, is protecting teachers to make sure that we can keep them in the state of West Virginia? So that would be a payroll issue too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's a very, very top priority for me. I know we need to get the infrastructure. We definitely need the high-speed internet everywhere. I mean, right now with COVID, that's devastating for all these kids and families that have no connection. They have to go to McDonald's to connect to Wi-Fi, so.
How are you handling it in your family?
Luckily where I'm at, we do have Wi-Fi connection, so we're okay.
Decent.
And we are doing what we call click. In Berkeley County, it's brick or click, whether you're doing online or back to school in person. And, but there's many places in this area that do not have good service. So
Has everybody had one of the things that I'm really learning about broadband too, and we all have to do that, but we have this thing called the Broadband Enhancement Council, and Senator Manchin's talked about it a lot. You can take a speed test to find out how fast your internet is, and you can take one in the morning, you can take one in the evening. We should have that up, Sarah, for the next year. Sarah is
I'm listening.
Susan is always have you taken the speed test, Susan? Have you tried that with your internet from home?
Ours is terrible. Yeah, and I kicked off the.
Well, the reason it's important is there's this big funding called RDOF, Rural Digital Opportunities Funding. And if you look at the map that they have for the broadband, and who knew that we were going to have to learn about this stuff? I mean, who knew? If you look at the map, a lot of places in, say, your county, Debbie, or even your county, Susan, or Sarah, looks like we have good coverage. But nobody has taken the speed test to show that it's crappy, and if you have Frontier, then you have coverage. So I think it's something that I think broadband is a very, very important issue, and it's not one that women normally know very much about, but it seems to me that if we care about educating our children, all of a sudden we have to learn more about broadband.
And it is speedtest.net for people who want to check the speed of their internet, and it changes a lot throughout the day. Speedtest.net.
Have you done it, DL?
Oh, many times. I was counsel to the Broadband Council.
Oh, were you?
General office. Mm-hmm.
So you can teach all of us a little bit more.
No,
we know how.
That's a fast.
Now that we know how important it is, I mean, Lord, it's really, really important.
And my sister Patty is working on it with the county officials, because the counties are getting involved in broadband.
Yeah, and just for when you hear these cell phone companies say 5G, we don't have 5G in West Virginia. There's many areas where we have no internet, we don't have appropriate cell service, and so this hinders not only education, small business growth, expansion, any number of things. I will say this real quick. Frontier is my parents' provider, and for years, not months, years, they have had horrible phone service, very staticky, and terrible internet. And they rely on telemedicine right now. And I'd had it. So I went on to Twitter and I just let Frontier have it, which I typically do not do. I don't think it's good, but I'd had it. And let me tell you, they've had someone at my parents' house now 3 times in the last week. So I'm saying
the squeaky wheel.
Well, as I said to them, I was very clear, if anything happens to my parents because they can't reach someone, I'm going to be you're going to be on my radar. So, this is literally a matter of life and death for some people, especially our older generation, our older folks who rely on telemedicine, who rely on getting a phone call to a relative or a doctor if they need help. And there were many times I can't even call my parents and they have no cell service. I mean, this is 2020, people.
Yeah.
It's just not acceptable anymore. And, we still talk, which again, coal it served its purpose, but we are beyond that now. So
and we are beyond our allotted time. Too.
We are. We're only 4 minutes behind, so we did well. Ladies, as always, it's such a pleasure to be here with you, and I love learning from you and hearing about what your plans are and how you want to change West Virginia for the better. Delegate Flashauer, thank you so much for your leadership and continued leadership in the House of Delegates. And thank you all for joining us on the live stream and those who are joining on the replay. We appreciate it. hey, leave a comment, ask a question, and we'll make sure someone gets back to you. So have a good night. See us here next week at 7 o'clock next Monday. Bye.
And the rest of us are staying on.